Here. All righty. Mr. Lemire, would you care to lead us in the pledge of allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Thank you, sir. All right. Do we have any additions or corrections to the agenda?
No additions or corrections.
All right, thank you. Can I get a motion and a second to approve the agenda?
Motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
All right, motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, on to consent agenda. Can I get a motion and a second to approve consent agenda?
Motion to approve consent agenda.
Second.
All right, motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Thank you very much. Moving right along. Yeah, public hearing. Okay. We're going to have a public hearing on the Manassas Park Strategic Plan for 2023. So I would like to open the public hearing. The purpose of the hearing is to allow comments directly related to strategic plan. Guidelines: citizens wishing to speak must sign in. When called to the podium, please provide your name, and for Manassas Park city address. For staff, please provide your title and work location. Each person is allotted 3 minutes to make comments. Ms. Williams will let you know when you've reached those 3 minutes. Ms. Williams, do we have anyone signed up to speak?
No, Chairman Alexander.
Okay. That being said, I would like to close the public hearing on the Manassas Park 2023 strategic plan. And moving on to public comments. Ms. Williams, do we have anyone signed up for public comment?
No, Chairman Alexander.
All right, so we're making great time here. Okay, moving on to, let's see what we got next. The new business, all right.
Superintendent Spotlight.
Oh, Superintendent Spotlight, thank you. Number 5, I always skip it. Dr. Saunders.
Chairman Alexander, I'd like Dr. Grosser to share some exciting news with the board and the community. Dr. Grosser?
Right. Good evening, Chairman Alexander and members of the board. Tonight, our spotlight is on our successful Back to School 2023-2024. I think we're far enough into not jinx that at this point and say that we had a successful start to the school year. So we just have a few pictures as I read some things about it. Our spotlight tonight is on Back to School 2023-2024. We started the year off right with a variety of professional development opportunities for our new and returning staff members. Our human resources team led a new teacher welcome back that was very well received, and our new teachers reported feeling informed and included from the start. The next week, we held open house events at all 4 of our schools. The open houses were so well attended that we had over 75% of families attend at multiple schools. Then on August 21st, we welcomed over 3,400 students back into our school buildings. The success of our open house events led to a smooth and calm first day for our kids. Since then, we saw the return of Friday Night Lights with our football season starting. We also had the start of volleyball, golf. Soon we have auditions for the fall play, and we're ready for our first division-wide SEL night and our first multicultural night at Cougar Elementary School coming up in the next few weeks. So tonight we'd like to spotlight our teachers, our support staff, our bus drivers, our food service workers, our parents, and our students for a great start to this school year. And that concludes our spotlight for tonight.
Thank you, Dr. Grosser. Anybody have any comments?
It's great to have everyone back.
Yeah.
Great to be back.
All right, now moving on to new business. All right, Manassas Park Board Governance Norms and Protocols. So, does everyone get a chance to review in board docs the norms and protocols?
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
Do we have was there any discussion? Does anyone have any questions, any points of clarification, anything we'd like to discuss?
I don't.
Anyone? Okay. So Ms. Williams, from a standpoint, this is strictly just a discussion and we'll adopt at the next meeting, is that?
Yes, Chairman
Okay.
Alexander.
All right.
Just discussion for both of them.
All right. So if we don't have any questions, we can move along unless, and then I would just ask if the board has any questions, just to email Dr. Saunders as well as the entire school board, so that way we all can see each other's questions and get a chance before the next meeting to vote. All right. And moving on to next order of business is the VSBA Code of Conduct for School Board Members. Again, this is in everyone's portfolio for board docs. Did everyone get a chance to review it?
Yes.
All right, so same questions. Do we have any questions, clarifications, or anything that we would want amended? I believe, Dr. Saunders, this comes directly from VSBA, right? Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. I was gonna say that. All right. Any questions, concerns? None? Anyone?
No.
Good. Mike, you okay?
Yeah.
Okay. That's
Just
how you
taking a
read. I thought
second.
you had a question there.
Just taking a second.
Okay. All right, then if that's the case, I will just say, let's do, just as with the norms and protocols, if there's any questions, let's please send it to the school board distribution list, as well as Dr. Saunders and Dana, so we can get anything answered, and all parties get the same answers. Does that work?
Mm-hmm.
All right, moving on to action items, number 7. Manassas Park City Schools Strategic Plan.
Chairman Alexander, I'd like Ms. Pam Kelso to come forward for this action item.
Good evening, Chairman Alexander and members of the board. I'm here this evening seeking approval for Manassas Park City Schools Strategic Plan 2023. I did review the feedback that was submitted via the website, the form on the website. We had one submission regarding creative scheduling and teacher retention. So that information will certainly be taken into account as we do our work in each of the 3 pillars. We have discussed as an executive team some of our next steps. Once approval can take place, we can start beginning to plan out our teams and our action items for this school year. Keep in mind, this is a 5-year process, and I will be reporting back in the spring with updates on the progress for this school year. Does the board have any questions regarding the strategic plan?
Any questions?
I don't.
I have one question. It's not as much on the content, but is there going to be an expected schedule of when will we be getting updates on the kind of KPIs associated with it and milestones met?
Yes, I'll be providing that as soon as we can come together as our different teams. We'll start developing what those KPIs are. We've been given lots of tools from Education Elements, including an internal dashboard, which we'll use to track our progress, and that's certainly something we can report back on.
Thank you.
And develop a more formal schedule for reporting.
I appreciate it.
Mhm.
All right. Anyone else?
No, I had a similar question about the
Okay.
reporting.
All right. All right. Thank you, Ms. Kelso. That's it.
So
Now,
take a vote.
yes. It's an action. All right. Can I get a motion and a second to approve the Manassas Park City School Strategic Plan 2023 as written?
Motion to approve the strategic plan for 2023.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Thank you. Appreciate the board's support.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you for your hard work.
Yes,
Thank
thank
you.
you for everyone's hard work on it.
All right. Moving on to Communications and School Safety Crisis Plan, Dr. Grosser.
All right, good evening again, Chairman Alexander, members of the board. Tonight, we are here to certify our crisis plans for our schools for 2023-2024. First, we're just going to move through the statement that we'll read prior to certifying the plans. And then I do want to provide you with an update on some of the work we've been doing to update our plans over the last 6 months or so, and then give you a quick update on our big security upgrades project that we've been kind of moving through for the last year or so.
School crisis, emergency management, and medical operation response plans means the essential procedures, operations, and assignments required to prevent, manage, and respond to a critical event or emergency. Each school board shall ensure that every school that it supervises develops a written school crisis response plan and shall include chief law enforcement officers, fire chiefs, and the emergency management official of the locality in the development of such plans. Each school division shall designate an emergency manager to oversee the planning process. The group shall annually review the written school crisis plans. The local school board shall have the authority to withhold or limit the review of any security plans and specific vulnerability assessment components as provided by Virginia Code. The local school division superintendent shall certify this review in writing to the Virginia Center for School and Campus Safety. That being said, what you see in there tonight is the template that reflects the plans that our schools work through. So as of today, all 4 of our schools have completed that template and they filled in that information. We hold that information back because we obviously want to protect the safety and security of the schools and not release our exact plans out to the public. But as of this date, everybody has those. The one thing I did want to update you on this year, some of the work that we've been doing for the past 6 to 9 months is around reunification. Reunification refers to what happens when you need to get students back to their families in a non-traditional way. So that is if we have to evacuate a school or a campus. What are we going to do, and what are our plans to get our students back? Because the first questions we get from our parents are, where's my baby? How do I get my child home with me? So we've gone through that and really looked at what our processes were and realized that, you know, as we have a lot of students in our schools, we need a large place to do that. We really have strong relationships with our city partners right now. We've been working with the community center on use of their facility. So in the event we do have to go to a reunification situation, we have secured the community center to be our location where we'll do that. We have maps that tell everybody where they need to go, what they need to do, assignments for everybody, and strict instructions that we'd be able to provide to our community so that our community would know this is what we need to do in order to go and be reunified with our students. So, you know, obviously that's a situation we don't want to end up in, but it would be even worse if we ended up in that situation without having a plan for it. So that is some of the work that we've been doing over the last few months. One nice thing with that is, you know, this year we have an SRO on all 4 of our campuses, and our SROs have been a great addition to our school division. We also have an SSO, a school safety officer, at both the middle school and the high school, and we have school safety leads at both of our elementary schools as well. So they're helping to continue some of that work. Next up, I'd like to provide a quick update on the status of our security upgrades. As you know, we started this major project about a year ago, working with the city. The city's been a great partner, as well as the police department, through this work. I am happy to report that all of our upgrades to our camera systems, our surveillance camera systems, that work has all been completed. Our new cameras are online, they're fully functional, and everyone now has access to those. We also did some training around using that system over the last 2 weeks, so everyone has been trained and is able to use those. Currently, the company is installing our new access control panels. The access control panels give us 2 better capabilities than we've had in the past. 1, we can lock a building down faster than we've ever been able to do so before. And 2, we have a little bit better accountability and tracking measures for who is accessing our building, when are they accessing the building, and where are they going. So that is going on right now. That work should be done probably within the next few weeks. And then one of the major projects that hasn't been started yet is the vestibule at the high school. That's been a topic of conversation for many years. Unfortunately, just like everything else, we have supply chain issues going on in school safety materials as well. So we're a little bit delayed in that project. The last timeline I saw for it was a start date around the end of September. We have a meeting on Wednesday to get an update on that timeline, but I anticipate that being the next thing that comes along. We also have our hardening enhancement to various doors and windows in the building, and that is about 80 to 90% complete. So that project has gone really well. That was one of the first things completed. The final phase we're looking at is a replacement of our PA systems to ensure coverage of the PA system across the entire inside of the building, and then to include the outside of the building. So as you can see, there's been a lot of work going on with that. We've worked with the company BRCI. We meet with them every other week. Our city partners are there. The city's been a great partner with us. The police department sends a representative, and we get all of our questions answered. They're flexible with us and work with us to move around and adjust as need be. So I'm pretty excited to report to you guys on some of those upgrades as well. That being said, I think we need to go ahead and move to certify our crisis plans for this year.
Okay. Jenny, you have questions?
I do. Are we working with social services? I know that they have a mock disaster drill with the Red Cross on November 4th at the Manassas Park Middle School to help with displaced residents. Are we working with them and coordinating in case we have the middle school or the city has a disaster and the school's disaster plan and then we have a social services disaster plan, we're not kind of stepping over each other?
Yeah, so one of the things that we recognize is that due to the uniqueness of the size of our city, that any disaster that goes on in the city is going to impact our schools, and any disaster that goes on in our schools is going to impact our city.
Right.
So probably close to a year ago, the city was having some emergency management meetings, and that would be where you'd have police, fire, city, sometimes community center, DSS would be involved. And they did actually invite me to the table within that time so that we can all make sure we're on the same page. All of our plans do get shared with everyone around the city as well. And one of the things we talked about over the last year was that the shelter drill, and that they would be doing that so that we were all on the same page and knew what to expect.
Great, thank you.
Any other questions?
I just wanted to comment that it's great to hear that we have such a good partnership with the city in creating this crisis plan, because as you said, they affect each other. So that's great to hear.
Anyone else?
Also, I want to say thank you. Last week on Friday, Dr. Saunders and Dr. Grosser took me on a little bit of a tour, and I got to see some of the hardening and we had some really good discussions on how the city has implemented with, financial responsibility as well. So awesome. Thank you guys very much.
You're welcome. It's great to get to show it off, and if any of you would like to see any more of our crisis plans that we don't make public anytime, you're certainly able to request those from me.
I only have one question. This hopefully is not an issue anymore, but I remember years ago getting a radio signal down at Cougar was a problem. So I was just curious, has that been resolved yet?
Yeah, so there have been some conversations around that. We did put some repeaters into the elementary campus over the summer, so cell phone service was also an issue. Right now, that has been solved. So if you go in, you will be standing in, somebody was joking that they were standing in a part of Cougar the other day that they've never in 20 years had their cell phone ring in, and their cell phone rang and they didn't know what was happening. So that does work. We've also worked with the police and fire departments on their radios. They had some issues with their radios in the building as well, and they have, through a grant, secured some new radios, and we're working with them to make sure those radios work within the building as well.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so can I get a motion to certify the template as presented?
So moved.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right. Thank you, Dr.
Thank you.
Gross. All right, moving on to finance, policies, fees, fines, charges, annual update. Mr. Lyon, thank you.
Good evening, Chairman Alexander, fellow members of the board. This evening I'm here for the second reading of policy JN. That's not it. This policy was presented for the first reading at the last board meeting. Tonight it's on your action agenda as presented for vote.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions or comments?
Yeah, and I think, so I have a couple comments, actually. The first line says the school board charges student fees and takes action to recover those funds for the loss of or damage of school board property. If you look for the high school, you'll see that we have $50 senior class dues, and I don't really feel that that belongs. It's not a recovery of damage or a loss, and I don't feel that that's appropriate to be there. And also, we got the email from you about what those senior class dues covers. It covers a yard sign. It does not cover graduation cap and gown, which is an additional $32 as of a couple of years ago. It covers embossing with a name, possibly, of the portfolio. It covers tassel. It covers a picnic, which the child or the student may or may not attend. And right now, we are giving free lunch to all of our students. And then now, we're asking the board to charge our students $50 to graduate, in addition to the $32 for their cap and gown. that's hard for me as a board member to say that's okay. And it's, again, it's dues. It's not a fee recovery for loss or damage of property that we own. So, and I think we talked about this a little bit. So I don't have a hard time with that. They're saying I would like to see that removed. We do prom, and we charge tickets. We don't have prom in there, so.
So, as a point of clarification, referencing that when the first line says the school board charges student fees and takes actions to recover funds, to get into the literal take on that side, we're basically saying this falls under, this is a student fee and not related to the recovery, like to Stacy's point, it's recovery of funds. That the way it reads initially, it's like we're classifying any of these expenses down here need to be tied to the recovery of funds due to a damage to school board property in accordance. I think, is that kind of how you're reading it from that standpoint?
Yes, if you want to put it in some other document where we're not voting on it as a recovery of loss or damage to property that the school board owns, that's fine. You can always ask a student and their family to pay because it's a due, and then they have the option to not. But to have the school board vote to mandate that, I think that's inappropriate.
I understand what you're saying.
I know.
The first sentence, those are two different actions, they're two different objects, they're not related to the other. They're not all in one. Student fees is one object of the sentence. The second is the damage to property, so they're actually two different things. The dues, certainly is up for discussion and debate. But at the will of the board, you just advise me what.
Right.
Are there any other, you guys would know better because you have like students in the school, are there any other dues that you see on this list, or is the only due the senior? Because then if that's the only senior, then in my mind, if that's the only due that's on this list, then it is misplaced. But if there are other dues, then maybe we need to look at all of them as a whole, if that makes sense.
It's the only one on the list.
Okay.
Yeah, it's only senior class dues. The other classes are not charged dues.
So, to another clarification question, are there other dues that we charge students that aren't on this list? I'm sure the answer is yes, like other dues. I see Miles shaking
Field
his head.
trips.
The dues aren't specifically for like every student,
Mhm.
but if we're in certain clubs such as like National Honor Society or Beta or anything like that, those do require dues. And I know I can't vote on this, but if somebody was to say we have to pay $50 in order to walk the graduation stage, half of my class would be asking why and where's the money going. And so why and where's the money going, if that makes sense. Because it just says senior class dues. We don't know what it's going towards. We don't know if the school is keeping it. We don't know if it's just going to sit in an account somewhere. Or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
So if you know where any of that money is going or how it is supposed to be used, I would love to hear an explanation.
Yes, we provided that list to the school board members, and I apologize it didn't get to the student members. But Ms. Saberlane had just stated those. There were signs, there's a senior picnic. Off the top of my head, I don't have the list memorized, but there are itemized items.
I do. I can tell you off the top of my head. It's an embossed, it should be with your name. I know one year, my son, when he graduated, his name was embossed on the portfolio that your diploma came in, but the last year did not, so which was kind of strange. I'm not sure where the extra money went for that. There's a yard sign that you get. There's the tassel. The senior picnic. I think there was one more thing that came on to that, but I think that
Yeah,
was
that
pretty
sounds about
much,
right.
that was pretty much it.
In the high school reports, that the $50 doesn't cover the cost of all of those things. That's less than probably half of what those things actually cost per student. So they're charging less.
Okay.
But, of course, it's up to the board.
Right. So I have, it's all expenses related to honors and graduation ceremonies. Senior fees cover, diploma covers, yard signs, tassels, medals, senior picnic, rental and facilities and food, senior night decorations and food, senior breakfast, senior lunch, supplies, for painting, so the senior rock and stuff like that.
Correct.
Cap and gowns are not included. My understanding related to the cap and gowns and tassels, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but this was my understanding of the rules, is the school's not allowed to pay for things that students keep. Like, and you're not gonna, so like you keep your tassel, we can't buy clothing, like, that's, I know in the athletics realm.
Typically
I
you
know-
don't.
Right.
The reason those fees are not in the policy is because the students deal directly with the vendor
But it's
on
not
the gowns.
clothing.
Do they keep the yard sign?
Well, I'm sure they keep the yard sign.
Okay.
But typically, we don't buy clothing for students unless it's.
Gotcha.
in-
Right, so I'm talking about typically like clothing is
Gotcha,
typically,
okay.
like, that's what I know just from my experience with
Right.
uniforms and stuff like that.
And it has been clarified to me that if a student is in need, they can ask. But why should a student have to ask for an exception to be covered to graduate? It just doesn't speak to any kind of equity or inclusion. I have a hard time with that.
It's actually against policy to hold someone back from graduating.
To
if they
what?
don't pay.
No, exactly. They don't have to, yes, I
Yeah, so
understand.
the
I
kids still
understand.
graduate
Yeah.
regardless if they pay the
But
dues or not.
I just, again, this is dues, it's not a fee. It's, in fact, it says fees at the top and it's dues. It's just different. It is different, and I have a hard time saying that the school board should approve this, so.
Chairman Alexander, can I just add, I just want to clarify that the dues do not preclude a student from graduating. So every student who earns their diploma and is eligible to walk across the stage will do that. So I want to make sure that the students understand that, and that we aren't confusing the two, so that they definitely are two different things, and certainly want to make sure that everyone is clear on the actual graduation process for students to be eligible to graduate is based on what they've earned and the grades and the courses.
Can you clarify if they owe anything for locker rental, replacement driver education fee, field trip fees, parking permit fees, or band fees? Any of those, does that preclude them from graduating?
No.
No.
Okay.
We work to try to collect any of those fees before they graduate, but it won't prevent them from graduating or receiving their diploma.
I do have another question. Is there a way we could possibly reduce the price of senior dues, considering the fact that a lot of our students that come from low-income areas, like $50 is a lot for them? Is there a way we could consider or reconsider what is in?
That's on us as the board.
Okay.
So we as a board, then, if we feel strongly enough for it, what we would do is we would ask Dr. Saunders in the upcoming budget to account for that into the 2024 budget and cover it that way.
And it needs to be considered as well that these students are not just paying the $50, they're paying an additional, as of 2 years ago, it was another $32 on top of that for their cap and gown. I think that included the tassel, the regular tassel as well, I thought. But, yeah, I could be wrong.
So it sounds like we have like two conversations, right? We're talking about whether it belongs on this document, first of all, and then second of all, we want to look at the price, right? Okay.
So, for now, I mean, this is kind of where I'm seeing is it's more that we're questioning, one, what the fees are, two, where we want the fees noted, and then essentially how we want those fees covered. Ultimately, I would say for this year's budget cycle, this was not included in this year's budget.
No.
So I personally would say, like, I would vote to at least move forward with this, but then with the instructions then to Dr. Saunders for the next budget cycle, let's figure out a way to include this in the 2024-25 budget.
I agree, but I understand Ms. Cyberling's argument that if this is for fees and this is the only due that is listed on this fee document, I believe that they should be separate because seniors are a select group of students, right? To Miles said that he gave the example that if you're in a club, then you have a due for that club.
Right.
So only
But a club, I would argue, you have the choice of joining as well. There
That's
is the
fair.
decision
That's
that
fair.
you choose to make to join a club.
So why should you have to pay a due for something you didn't choose to be a part of? You just got
Well,
older. And
true.
were successful with your coursework. Just, why would you pay a due for that?
Right. I'm just, basically, I'm going in the spirit of like, I mean, let's call it a fee then. Does that change the sentiment?
Yeah, I think maybe that's something, but.
We can change the wording to a fee.
I mean, because we've got parking fee, band camp fee, I mean, there's, green card fee for student drivers, like there's all kinds of
think
fees.
the word-
Choir,
So if we, changing the
NJROTC.
terminology to fee.
I think the word dues has just been the traditional word.
Right, I believe, yeah.
It is a fee, and this is the policy where you would state it, if you
Okay.
were to
Yeah.
include it as a fee.
Same for transcript fees and all others.
What are our options for finding the funding to support this?
Your options, if you wanted to remove it this year,
Yeah.
we would have to go through the budget and cut lines to make up, I think I said about $10,000,
Mhm.
high school estimated to be about 10,000. We would have to find that money. Now, typically at the end of each year, we do have unexpended funds. The amount varies. I'd imagine we would have some unexpended funds. This year's budget, though, is pretty tight.
I know.
And like Chairman Alexander said, it's not built into the budget. So we would have to find the money. We'd have to cut some lines and find 10,000.
But I just want to clarify again, if a student doesn't pay this fee, they are still allowed to graduate. So even if we were not able to remove it from this fee, it's not going to prevent a student from graduating this year. Okay.
Yeah, and I wouldn't ever prevent them from graduating.
Thank you.
Then what would happen with the fee if it's not going to if it's not going to preclude them from graduating, then what's the point of having the fee in particular? Because right, a lot of times we go through the motions, like the seniors last year, they're like, oh, I have to pay this $50 fee before I leave the building in order to graduate. And if that's not the case, then is it really something that we have to do, considering the fact that, like you said, Dr. Saunders, this won't preclude the student from actually walking across the stage?
The fee is to cover those expenses of the line items that were mentioned earlier. And it's not built into the budget, and that's about $10,000.
What happened to the money for the portfolios that were not embossed last year? So what happens to the money when something like that? Because I know the year my son graduated, they were embossed with their names, but last year they were not. So where did that extra money go?
Well, again, these fees don't cover all the costs. The costs are twice as much than the fees cover. But I would have to go back to high school and ask them about, that's new to me, so I'd have to ask the high school about last year's covers.
It could have been a supply chain issue.
Yeah, I know
Oh.
many high schools, including
Yeah.
ours, had issues with diplomas from the vendor.
Right.
And I think they all had the same vendor.
But I mean,
That is true.
why not make some of this stuff optional as far as the breakfast and the senior, make it ticketed like prom? And why is a yard sign? I didn't have a
That-
yard sign when I graduated. I mean, that seems a little,
That came into play during COVID, and I believe it's popular from what I had been told, and that's why it was kept.
Have the dues changed over the years, or has it been 50?
It's gone down. It used to be 100,
Okay.
and that covered the expenses of from what I've been told.
Do you remember about what year we cut them? Like how recently has it gone down?
Last year.
Last year. So last year it decreased,
And I-
so.
and I believe the
2
year before
years-
that,
2 years ago, because
was it 2 years ago, 50?
it had to have been, because I only paid 50 when my son
Okay.
graduated.
So
It was a
2
couple of
years
years
ago.
ago, yeah.
Probably during COVID.
Mhm.
So these have decreased.
So if we're looking for money, essentially, personalized parking space fee is only $20. How many students on average drive to work or drive to school every day? A decent amount?
So we only have 100 parking spaces at the high school for students. Normally, all 100 are filled. If not, it's 90 to
Okay.
90%.
Okay,
I'm
so
not
then-
sure how many pay for the painting. I'd have to find that out.
Okay, so then, would it be possible to maybe add another, like we could penny pinch and add $5 here and there, for stuff that is a choice? Because, If they want to personalize and paint it up, that's their choice for that privilege. And I mean, to raise that $5 might not kill somebody per se, and really kill a budget. I mean, $5 could go from 100 students, 20 could go a long way. As an example.
I need to respond to that real quick. For student activity funds,
Yes,
when the
that's-
money is raised for a specific group or activity, that money goes to that program or that organization or that team. So even though those are optional, if we increase them, we wouldn't be able to take that
Yeah.
money back. And
We're
use
not a
that.
profit center in that sense,
Correct.
so we can't absorb any of those costs. And I will say one of the other things that, and I think Miles can speak to this because he's the subject matter expert related to the parking spaces, was the reason the cost was kept so low was for the exact reason he was mentioning, which is if the higher it goes, the less the students would actually choose to participate in there. So we were trying from an equity standpoint to keep it as low as humanly possible
That
so
makes
that
sense.
as many students would.
Okay, that makes sense.
Miles, is that a fair?
Yes, thank you.
So if a student does not pay the senior class dues, they just don't get that list of things that was in the email?
I don't believe I'd have to ask, I don't believe anyone doesn't get anything.
Okay.
If the high school works with the students to try to abate any situation that may be preventing them from paying.
And to expand on that, I mean, at that point, we're not talking about every fee on that list,
No.
for the most part. I mean, almost everything on there, except for the like band camp fees and stuff. Obviously, to attend certain things, field trips, those fees you have to pay to attend. But it's very similar to lunches, very similar to like, kids can't pay for lunch, they still get lunch.
Correct.
Their account goes negative. We don't stop them from graduating in those cases. So
It's just designed to help kind of
it's to try to offset the loss.
Yes, exactly. Okay.
And that's why if
Chairman Alexander, I would just also, I had a sidebar conference with Ms. Calso, who was the principal at the high school at one point. And so students would still participate in those activities, events, those types of things. There would be, the school, I think Mr. Lyons said the school would work individually with families and with kids and such so that they could have an experience that was really positive to graduate. And so I just want to clarify that they do their very best to make sure that everyone gets to be able to participate in most of those things, should they want to.
If we add or change the wording of senior class dues, like you had mentioned before, to say senior class fees and then explain within the document what those fees are for, I think we wouldn't have to run into this issue again or have this conversation again. So could we consider doing that? Again, I know I can't vote. So.
I don't mind the idea. The only thing I would want to avoid is like an itemized price listing, because ultimately you'll never be. You could list these are the general things that they kind of like the email you sent.
Right.
But I don't think you want to get into the itemized breakdown because.
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
Okay.
It could be the senior class
Right.
changes their mind and instead of science, they do something else to
Right.
replace that.
Typically to include,
Yeah.
kind of something to that effect.
It's misleading that it might include this cap and gown, because originally that's what I thought it included, and it did not. So I was a little surprised that I had to order something else on top of paying for the $50 as well.
I'm comfortable with it having changed to fees. If we could look into having some type of description, maybe saying this does not include cap and gown. And then I would love the idea to look into maybe next year what we can do with the budget to, I don't know if we could cut it completely, but maybe decrease it, but that's where I stand right now.
Perfectly reasonable.
I'm of the mind that we need to find that money in the budget this year, and it should be removed.
Chairman Alexander, since this is an action item,
Yeah.
you all need to take a vote on
Yes,
the
ma'am.
action or amend I guess you have to take a vote on the action as presented and then kind of move from there what you may want to do next.
Okay, you're gonna have to walk me through the parliamentary procedure associated with that, Ms. Williams.
That's what Dana's for.
Is it here?
All right, so let me, for now, I'd like to, can I get a motion and a second to vote on the fiscal year, excuse me, that's not, on the Apology J9, or JN, fees, fines, and charges annual update as written for now. Can I get a motion?
I thought I'm sorry.
We have to vote on it as it's presented, and then we can say no to that, and then at that point, we would then say we would like, what changes we would want to get.
Right.
No.
I motion that we
So I have to get
do
the motion,
to decline or
well, just a motion to vote.
a motion to vote on the policy JN fees, fines and charges as written.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? All opposed?
Aye.
Okay,
Fails.
all right. How am I doing over there, Dana?
You're doing fine. And since it was fees, I'm just going to go ahead and take a roll call vote so everyone can be on voice
Okay.
saying no to this, okay?
Gotcha.
Mr. Michael Cummings,
Opposed.
Dr. Shante Jones,
Opposed.
Mr. Paul Alexander,
Opposed.
Ms. Stacy Cyberling,
Opposed.
Ms. Ellen Slobodnik.
Opposed.
Thank you.
Okay.
So now,
I,
So Chairman Alexander, at this point, if the board has a consensus for what you'd like for staff to do to adjust that, we would have to bring it back again at the next meeting.
Gotcha.
I don't think we can, you could amend it at this point and create a new motion if you can all agree upon that. So you have two options. You can amend the vote, the motion.
Okay.
To something that you would, that the board would like to vote on then, or you can direct us to make some changes and come back.
Okay. I'm gonna take a shot at it. All right. Can I get a motion to amend the verbiage of the dues to fees? An addition to the student class, hopefully named fees, with an explanation of what those fees include. And that's it for the update on the verbiage, but then also with the expectation of staff finding a way to include this into 2024 to 2025 budget.
I second the motion to vote on the amendment of the policy.
Don't you have to make the motion?
Oh,
Right,
sorry,
okay.
I motion
Very
to
good.
make the amendment, the amended changes to the policy on the fees.
All right. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor, changes?
Aye.
No.
Opposed?
Aye. Opposed.
Okay. All right. So motion passes, and Dr. Saunders will work with Mr. Lyon to figure out how we can solve this for the next year.
Yes, Chairman Alexander, we'll work to make those adjustments in the policy so that it reflects the changes that you have identified, and we will consider that in our budget development in '24.
Thank you. Okay. Moving on to finance, Mr. Lyon.
Lucky you.
2025 budget development calendar.
Chairman Alexander, members of the board. My last item for this evening is our fiscal year 25 budget development calendar. Even though we just started this year, it's time to start working on next year's budget.
Yay.
We already have some ideas.
Yes, we have some.
Right? So you win in the long run.
That was a good, you just had to wait for the next item.
That's right, that's right. September 18th, we present the calendar today. October 2nd, during a work session, we will take a look at our closeout summary of FY23. We will look at an amendment for FY24, which we traditionally present in November, or well, October, it comes up. Then we have a hearing, a public hearing in November, and we'll take action on that proposed amendment then. Then, starting in January, we'll have our budget work sessions for the next budget. And as you can see, the dates throughout there, we aim to have the board approve a superintendent's proposed budget on March 18th. And then it'll be ready to present to the governing body on March 19th. Now, that March 19th date is contingent upon their agenda setting, but right now that's the one, that's our date that we're planning on. They may change it, subject to their agenda. It may be later, it won't be earlier.
Okay. Any questions?
No.
All right. Then can I get a motion and a second to approve the 2025 budget development calendar?
Motion to approve the FY25 budget development calendar.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, thank you, Ms. Flynn.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. And moving on to upcoming meetings. We have a school board work session Monday, October 2nd, 2023, 6:59 in the large conference room on the 3rd floor. And then we have a regular school board meeting October 16th, 6:59 in City Hall and board chambers. Does any board members have any comments?
Wait, did anyone want to go before me? All right, since
Start us
everybody's
off.
looking at me.
It's your
Okay.
thing. It's your thing.
First off, I would like to thank Mrs. Calso and the rest of the strategic planning team, including Dr. Jones and Ms. Labodnik. This was a very long process, and it was a lot of work. It was a lot of good, deep conversation, and I'm glad that it is finally approved, and I hope that we continue to make sure this is an active, a living, breathing document throughout the 5 years that we use it. As for theater, Dr. Grosser, we actually did have auditions. I will not be in either of the fall shows. However, I would like to shout out Crystal, who will be the stage manager for our VHSL show.
Yes.
And if you guys have a chance to come out, please do. I believe the VHSL competition show is on November the 4th, if I'm not mistaken. It's a Saturday.
November 4th is homecoming, Miles.
No, but it's on the same day.
Really?
Yeah.
That's a packed day.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
But if you guys can, please come out to that. I'll probably be there volunteering. And then our main theater show in the fall is going to be Clue. I believe that will be in December. So be on the lookout for dates for that. And our musical is The Little Mermaid. That's not until May, but I just wanted to point that out. Also, we had our first General Body Student Leadership Council meeting today, and I just want to shout out the senior officers. So congratulations to Michael Mejia, our historian, Jay LaSalle, our treasurer, Molly Togney, our secretary, Janelle Lapid, our vice president, and Madison Alexander, our president. So I am excited to work with you guys again this year, and please make sure you guys support the volleyball team. The volleyball team who had a game tonight. Unfortunately, I was unable to be there, obviously. Cross country, golf, and our football team, which scored on Friday. And Crystal and I were both at the game. We really enjoyed it. So now we have something to go, now we have a reason to go to the games from a student standpoint. So just please,
I get it.
Please go ahead and support the football team. Our next home game is the 29th of September. It is a pink out. Wear your pink. And last but not least, I just want to say, please check on your friends, your students, your teachers, especially your seniors. This is a very difficult few months for us, considering the fact that we have a lot of things to do, including submitting our college applications, and we're finally getting into the full swing of things. So please make sure you check on your students. Please, please, please. I cannot say it enough. Our mental health is important, and this is a community that cares about each other. So please keep that in mind as you see students throughout the week, throughout the month. And that is the end of my comments. So.
I'll add on to that with our teachers too, because I've heard some teachers saying, you know, although they're happy to be back, they've had some tough days too, so everyone needs to get back in the swing of things, so our teachers, our administration as well.
Okay, I do have some dates to, our first choir concert is October 4th at 6:59 p.m. Oh yeah, you're right, I gotta speak into the mic, okay. October 4th, 6:59, that is, yes, our first choir concert. And then we also have a performance October 14th at the Hilton Center. That one is in the middle of the day around
It's 4:30.
2.
4.
We gotta be there at 2. It starts at like 3.
4:30.
4:30?
Yeah, the concert starts at 4:30.
She told us.
We're trying to figure this out because we're both in a lot of
She told us like 3:30, bro.
I thought it was 4:30, but we'll get that time to you guys in October.
Yep.
Thank you.
Tomorrow is also work keys test for juniors. And then we also have our PSAT on October 11th, and I think that's all I have. I mean, I have a couple games on here too. Oh, the 27th and the 28th is picture days at the high school, and I think that's all I have. I have volleyball games and stuff, but you got that covered.
Any other board member comments? All right, I have just a couple. Thank you to Ms. Saberling for bringing up the senior fees. Cyber, I will get it someday.
It's okay.
Thank you, Stacy.
It's easier.
It's good not to it's good to question status quo and really start to dig into some of these things. So I appreciate you bringing it up. And then congratulations, Dr. Jones, for chairing her first Gov School meeting this past go around. So I want to congratulate her and wish everybody a fantastic year. And if there are no other comments, can I get a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Thank you very much.
What?
I had to. My gavel's awesome.
His sleep.
All right. Miles, I didn't even know my daughter.
You didn't know she was running?
I saw her J-Lo post something on Instagram, and that's the only reason I knew. We don't communicate unless
Yeah,
it's about volleyball.
I found out this afternoon. So.
Oh my God.